So many things we could be doing.
Yeah.
And it's actually really hard to find the things that really move the needle. I've led products that ultimately after a few years we had to shut down because it didn't meet business goals or financial revenue goals. Mm-hmm. We couldn't solve these customer problems anymore because we didn't focus on the number one thing that was like enabling all of that.
Insights-driven approach, right? You bring data into the conversation so that you're not making emotional decisions. A lot of stakeholders, they get attached to products. They don't want to look at the data and what the data is showing them so that they can make the right decision about whether to sunset it, maybe pivot into a different direction, stuff like that. And data helps a lot with that.
North Star or hero metric is the one metric that matters for your business. It's great to have that North Star. It creates focus. The only problem with that is that you usually only know after the year has passed whether you've hit that goal. And that's when leading metrics come in.
A lot of people use data or love data when it tells a story that they want to tell. And then so the measurement becomes a little bit wobbly. Right? You're laughing because
people try to do too many things and they just get overwhelmed by all the different data points. What are we doing with this information? What's the extra insight from it? Actually learning what worked and what didn't.
In the era of AI, there's so much stuff you can do with data. Start simple, track less, but better.
The first challenge is to find a revenue model for the business that is closely linked to customer value. A pricing model should always be designed in a way that it also serves the customer.
You understand the ambitions of the stakeholder. You go, okay, cool. I see where you want to go with this, but what is the plan of action? Like, how do you deal with those situations?
Every goal that you set, you're absolutely right, has to come with an actual plan. Or a session where you all sit down together and go, how can we achieve those? Everyone hates roadmaps. FinTech is the one that grows 4 times faster than every other tech sector at the moment. We've been in New Zealand behind compared to other countries, hampered by regulation. We had that same shared passion for small business owners. We still don't think the system is supporting them enough. We try to make it more transparent, find the right provider. It's just going to be an exciting year ahead. I'm actually pumped for what's coming. This is definitely the first business product design podcast ever where I've listened to some really cool metal.
Welcome to the Melding Muse podcast. Melding art and design, entrepreneurship, music, fashion, film, sports, gaming, and whatever's in between. We exist to showcase extraordinary people to inspire the next generation of creatives and leaders. My guest today is Corinna Stukan, dancer, product executive, author, co-founder and CEO of Bizzy. We talked about FinTech, the challenges of finding hero metrics and measuring success, how to use data correctly to inform decisions, roadmaps, product design, mental health, and a lot more. If you're a product designer, manager, entrepreneur in the SaaS space, this episode is for you. Corinna Stukan, welcome to the Melding Muse podcast. How are you doing, my friend?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I've been watching so many episodes already and know some of the people have been here. So I love the setup. I love what you do. And it's super weird actually being here after watching a few of those episodes.
Oh, really? It's like one of those things when you watch something and then Emiliano, when he was here, was the same thing. He walked in and he's like, I want to see this place.
Yeah.
Because you've seen the episode with Lucas and it was quite cool. I actually like that reaction when people come in here and they literally, as soon as they walk through the door, they're like, I want to see where the space is.
Yes. We've put a lot of effort into this.
Yeah.
And it's
so
incredible.
I'm glad, especially because, I mean, you are absolute superstar. I don't know if you know that. Like, for people listening to this who don't know who you are, I'm going to try to contextualize them soon. But just before that, in the product management world, you're like the equivalent of, like in the music scene, will be like Lord. Okay, for people listening to this who don't know who you are, because when you posted a video on LinkedIn of my podcast, like you know, giving me some props, I'm like, oh shit, like I had no idea, never met you before. Then turns out you were, you know, you knew Emmy, and then I was like, oh, he never mentioned this to me, and I was like, man, you know, connected to an absolute rock star. But yeah, you are an absolute legend in terms of product manager. You're an author. And like I was telling to you before, some of the product people I know are actually big fans of your work. They use some of your framework. So I was actually very, very excited to have you here. We're going to cover a lot of stuff. And I thought, you know, you've done this podcast, many podcasts before. And what I thought I would do is, instead of getting you to tell your story once again, what I thought I'd do is I will tell your story off the top of the dome.
Okay.
So that to get people sort of up to speed to your background. And let's see how it goes. If I screw it up, then you get like,
So far, your introduction has been the most incredible. So I think I need to bring you to all the events that I do. Yeah.
I like to do it quite, I don't like to follow any scripts. But I'm going to give it a crack. So, Corinna, engineer, started engineering in Germany. Then you learn how to build things, but because you learn how to build things, then you decided, well, I actually want to know how people actually use these things that I'm building. And you became obsessed with actually usability testing. And that's what got you sort of through the door of UX design. You come to New Zealand, you are a UX designer pretty much. You understand how users interact with the things that you can build from the engineering background. And then fast forward, I'm going really fast here, but fast forward, you start to understand that you need to look a little bit outside into a more macro view, understanding a bit of the financial side, business objective, and more the business side of things. And you start thinking, actually, a product designer and a UX designer kind of get a bit into the weeds. I need to sort of zoom out a little bit, understand a little bit more, which is a thing that I also had to go through, and it's super important. So you did that, and then you turn into a UX interview, right? And you Rome, which is a really high level of UX. I also interviewed for Rome, and their design stuff was just incredible. So you gotta really, be a really good designer.
That was props to Lucas and his team and his craft. 100. They were incredible, top of the game.
Top of the game. I was so gutted. I told Lucas, he was sitting right here. I was like, dude, I wanted to work in your company and I didn't make it. he was like, really? I was like, yeah, but I loved it. It inspired me a lot just to be in that place. Anyways, so you turn up to this interview and you don't make the cut as a UX designer, but they say, wait a minute, you came in with so many questions about the business side that makes us think you actually would be amazing at product management. Have you thought about that? And you went, no, I haven't thought about that, but I want to work here. So how about we start?
Okay, that's actually incredible. How do you know this story? I've told it, I think, maybe a couple of times. So
yeah, no, I've listened to your podcast and I listened to your story, and I connected so much to that. So that's why I know it, because I could picture myself in that situation doing exactly what you did.
Yeah, because you now do product in your design
in my design
role as well.
Yeah, that's right. So then you get into products, and here's the crazy part, because this one is like nuts. So you build an entire team of product managers with this being your first role at product management. That's absolutely crazy. Like, that's insane. And this is in a company like Rome Digital. So that's when I think you start becoming legendary in the product side. Then you become an author, and then you start going a little bit deep into more different methodologies, how to track success, how you track product metrics, business objectives, blah, blah, blah. Become big on data, which is something I'm very passionate about as well. So now you bring all these things together, and the insight-driven product manager book that you wrote had a really cool stuff, which was about vanity metrics and stuff like that. Has that covered most of it?
That's actually incredible. Okay, yeah.
There's more. And you're now the CEO of Bizzy as well. So now you have your own product, which means that you're only not having all this product stuff, but now you are at the top of the dome, and you have to apply all these things that you learn. And I think one of the things that really interests me about your perspective is that intersection that you are now able to capture. I've worked with many CEOs, many stakeholders, and you can definitely see the way that the product takes form is based on their style of leadership.
100%.
Some of them are very sales driven, and that gets reflected in the products. And what I'm interested about you is because you have the UX background, and that pulls up in a different side, and that perfect intersection of product management, UX, human-centered design, all of these things really bring a unique value to what you bring to the table. So I think that summarizes it.
Yeah, thank you for this amazing summary. It's kind of weird listening to it from, someone else telling your story, because usually it's, me introducing myself. So it's super interesting, all the things we've picked up, and the transitions that I've gone through.
Yeah.
I think always reminded me that I really love going outside of what I was already doing, and like dabbling outside of my job descriptions. I think it's like the common theme in all of this.
Yes.
I think also I've been really fortunate to have a lot of great people around me that, gave me that experience and gave me that responsibility really early in my career.
And the support as well.
Yeah, like you said, I kind of fell into product management a bit earlier probably than I thought this would ever happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then to get that experience, to get to lead and grow a team of, we got to 15 product managers, together with...
Yeah, that's right.
So Lucas, our mutual friend, he was looking after design, I was looking after product, we grew the company. And I think in that journey, it's just irreplaceable. I think the learnings and the experience. And I think that's also where I got really hooked on the business side of things. Because obviously, as we grew the company, as we grew the team, I had to become a bit more commercially savvy as well. We also went through an acquisition of the company.
That's right, yeah.
That was huge. And so I think you're right, all of these things, a little bit like what you said earlier before we started this podcast, right? Like all the things you do in your journey to where you are now are kind of adding different skills to where you are currently.
Yeah, that's right.
At the same time, I'm also I've learned so many things, but there's still, I don't know what's next, right?
There's still a lot of stuff
my
to
mind
learn.
Always goes to, I still have so much to learn. I still have so many things to explore. You know, there's like marketing and other things that you never stop learning. That's, I think, the theme.
Yeah, that's right. For me, it's been sort of like that. I've been all over the place. Like you had your engineering background, for example. I had my marketing background. So I always sort of understood as a product designer about selling the product. How would you actually sell this product? Like having that background is also important. So that's for me
super valuable these days, especially.
Yeah. So how do you actually sell and market this product? I had that skill set again from my marketing background, graphic designer. Yeah, I think that's why I connect to your story so much, because of that. And also the hunger to learn and continue to grow your skills. So there you go. That's pretty much where we are now. Absolute legend in terms of product management. I have a lot of questions around management of stakeholders, analytics, vanity metrics, a lot of stuff. But before we get into that, I want to talk about something that you're known for, which is the Pragmatic German Approach. Because I've heard this when I was listening to you so much. And I'm like, what exactly does that mean? Because it gets thrown around and you kind of understand, okay, pragmatic, German design, you can get but the whole time I'm like, what does it actually mean? And I want to get it from you in a few words. Why are you so known for this pragmatic German approach?
In a few words, I think it's focusing on what really matters in the moment and not getting stuck in the fluffy things around it that can be distracting.
Nice. And in the business world, for example, can you put it into a little bit of an example so people understand how this pragmatic approach comes into action?
Yes. So one of the most common things I've seen is probably there's so many things we could be doing in our day, at work, in our businesses, in our roles. And it's actually really hard to find the things that really move the needle. And I think that's what it ultimately comes down to. So one of the best things to do is in any role that you are thinking about where is the business going? What are we really trying to achieve? To give you an example, I think a lot of in my design roles, it was very focused on delivering great customer experiences, designing a better onboarding, for example, and just making the experience more delightful.
Yeah.
And really solving customer problems. And that is still absolutely true. And nothing takes away from that goal. But I've learned in some of my experiences where I've led products that ultimately after a few years we had to shut down because it didn't meet certain business goals or financial revenue goals. None of this mattered at the end if we couldn't continue running this business, if we couldn't make it viable long-term for the business to run it. So then we had to stop. We couldn't solve these customer problems anymore because we didn't focus on the number one thing that was actually enabling all of that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things where I think the pragmatic German way of thinking, or it doesn't have to be a German way of thinking, but just, the pragmatic, taking a little bit of the emotion out of some of the business decisions that we make. If, for example, you're in a product role and you're doing a roadmap, or if you're a designer and you're thinking about all the things you could improve in the application that you're designing, what is it really that you're trying to achieve as a business? Are you trying to grow new customer acquisition? Are you trying to retain existing customers?
Yeah.
What is it really that will move the needle for the business that will enable you to keep solving customer problems in a meaningful way?
Yeah, that's perfectly explained. And that's actually a good segue into something I really wanted to ask you, because you mentioned about moving the needle, right? And that's, I think, super important, as you just explained. To understand what moves the needle, you kind of need to understand, like you said, where your business is going. And this is when the hero metrics and the leading metrics and all of this comes into place. And at the back of that, obviously, insights-driven approach, right? You bring data into the conversation so that you're not making emotional decisions. A lot of stakeholders, I'm pretty sure you've lived this, they get attached to products and they don't want to look at the data and what the data is showing them, so that they can make the right decision about whether to sunset it, maybe to pivot into a different direction, stuff like that. And data helps a lot with that. But the first thing I wanted to ask you was about those leading metrics, because, well, leading metrics, I've heard so many different frameworks, but usually it's like a hero metric or a North Star metric. And then there's leading metrics, right? That will track different things, right? Acquisition, retention, etc. So explain for people who don't understand or don't know about these metrics and how to use them in a practical way. What is a hero metric? What is a North Star metric? And what are leading metrics and how to use them?
A North Star or hero metric is usually the one metric that really matters for your business. So usually you set those for the financial year for the business, and you go, we really need to grow customer acquisition in this particular market.
Right.
That's an example.
Yeah.
The problem is, it's great to have that North Star. It's great. It creates focus. The only problem with that is that you usually only know after the year has passed whether you've hit that goal or not.
Yes.
And that's when leading metrics come in, or
that's right.
I call it more early indicators, early signals.
Yeah.
What are the things that you can look for now?
Short term that will...
Correct. That will
sure
tell
that
you...
if you're on track, sort of.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Or
right.
course correct if you're not.
That's true.
So to give you an example, right now I run Bizzy. It's a business lending online marketplace. So if a small business comes to us, if they need capital to grow their business, for example, you're a restaurant and you want to, add another restaurant,
franchise or
another franchise, or you want to buy some equipment to service some new jobs, you come to us, we connect with a wide range of different lenders or finance providers on the platform.
That's right.
That's usually, to give you just a bit of background on that, that's usually a process that takes weeks. You have to apply manually on different providers. They all ask you the same questions. And so it's a really tedious process. We kind of connect them within usually a day and provide different funding options for them to browse. Cool. So it's a really cool proposition. But for us, the hero metric here is that we want to, almost like a dating app or something like that, where you want to create successful matches, right? You want, as business owner, to find the right finance provider to service exactly what they need to solve for their particular business use case. So for us, the hero metric is those successful matches.
Okay.
Right? But again, it takes a long time, in my experience, to get to these results. So what are the things that we can look for now? So for example, if a small business comes to our platform, what are some early engagement and behavior I can look for that shows they're getting value out of the platform, they're engaging? So you can look for things like an activation metric, or do they get through the sign up? Do they start using it usually in the first week? That's a really good early signal, I find. If within the first week of signing up, does the customer really use your experience?
Right.
And so you can't fully link it always one to. Yes, they will convert. Yes, they will pay for your service. Yes, they will stay, 2 years down the line. You don't know these things, but at least you can try find these early signals and measure and see whether you're on the right track to lead to your wider North Star or the key metric that you've set.
Yeah, that's right. And so let's say that you're tracking this metric, and that's a really good example. When you're tracking these metrics, do you use this data to then also get validation from the clients in terms of because a lot of the times one thing I find is that we'll talk about vanity metrics in a minute, but stakeholders oftentimes would set these leading metrics as vanity metrics, really, if you really look at them, right? And then so the measurement becomes a little bit wobbly. You know what I mean? Let me give you an example. A lot of the times when one of those metrics is revenue, becomes really, really tricky, in fact, because oftentimes the revenue does not necessarily connect that we took the right approach. Sometimes it's a great sale that happened that has nothing to do with all the decisions that we made. But then they look at that and go, oh, you see, we are on the right track.
It worked, yeah.
It works. But it's like, wait a minute, that not necessarily. Like you really have to find out the why behind that. and if we actually are in the right path. You know what I mean?
I do.
So vanity metrics is one of those things that I come across a lot. I'm in the data business in terms of providing data. And one thing that you notice is that a lot of people use data or love data when it tells a story that they want to tell. Right? You're laughing because yes. when the data doesn't tell the story I want, then it's like, oh, that data is useless.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's when and then you go into this loop of vanity metrics and stuff. So it's actually in practice, because what you explained there with your company and how you're doing this, like that's perfectly right. But oftentimes, of course, in many, depending on the way the business operates, revenue plays a big part of that. Because if you're tracking all of that and then revenue is over here doing something different, you're like, okay, you have to connect the two, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's one thing I found, is that revenue always gets sort of bumped into this, and is important because ultimately, like you said, you could do the most amazing customer experience, but if your product is not selling really well, then you're not going to be able to actually continue.
Yes.
So how do you deal with all these sort of forces that pull apart in terms of the vanity metrics and revenue and all of these sort of things?
It's a huge challenge. You're not alone. I can share that. The first challenge is to find a revenue model for the business that is closely linked to customer value as well. Right. So if your business in the early days of software, there were a lot of long-term license agreements, for example. I don't know if you remember, you're in the design world, right? You would have to buy this years-long license key for Adobe or whatever software you were using. And it's not necessarily what the customer wanted. The customer didn't want to be locked into a 3-year, 4-year cost and plan or license. So I think over the years, we've gotten a lot better to be more focused on providing more flexible pricing plans. So where I'm going with this is a pricing model should always be designed in a way that it also serves the customer, or it mirrors the value that the customer gets.
That's a very good point.
And that doesn't exist in every company. So I'll just put that out there. Sometimes you do chase revenue opportunity that have absolutely nothing to do with customer value. And that's...
Yeah, like for example, I see some of the companies I work with, and that model would never work for them. Yeah. Because first of all, each customer sort of gets a different, even though they get the same product, they actually get it at a different price depending on the negotiations. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's kind of tricky in that regards.
Yes. When I work with, so I do on the side, I do a bit of coaching with product teams, especially on that analytics and the metrics side of things. It's just a real passion area of mine. And I always try to get them to focus on, actually the North Star doesn't have to be necessarily we need to make X dollars in this year. That's the wider business goal. You're assuming every company goal has we need to make this much money, or we have to grow by this much by the end of the year. That's fine. That's your business goal. But your North Star should be more around, where is that growth coming from? It might be coming from a specific product line that you're launching, or you think that, you've solved a great problem in New Zealand. Now you want to expand it to Australia because you see the same problem happening over there. Yeah. So that's really what the North Star should be mirroring more, is where is that expansion coming from? What is the real customer need that we're solving with our new product line or with our expansion? Yeah. So I do acknowledge that doesn't exist in every company. Sometimes these things are out of whack, and then you have to find your own way to
make it work.
Yeah. to be pragmatic around it, or to deal with it, or to try and improve it. Obviously, I'm in a startup now, or lead a startup. It's a little bit, I was able to work with a blank canvas and go design the actual business model, the revenue. How do we charge? Yeah. And because I just really believe in that approach of doing business. I think we should charge for the moment the customer gets value. Which in our case is when they find the right provider that helps them grow their business. Or AWS is a great example with their consumption-based pricing model. Sorry, I'm going super financy here, but it's a really fascinating thing, because I always find there's such a big gap between the business goal and what often product teams want to achieve. And I think there is a way to actually combine these two worlds if you're charging your customers based on the value that they get. So on Amazon Web Services, they were one of the first ones that really at a large scale brought in a consumption-based pricing model. You only pay for what you actually use, rather than being locked into years-long contract, whether you use it or not. So that's really where I'm going. That's kind of more probably for the executive teams or the CEOs or the ones who are actually in charge of your pricing strategy, the first step is to make sure that the customer value and your commercial model are actually in line. And then everything else can flow underneath that, the early signals and so on and so forth.
Right. And I have two questions that sparked my mind as you were talking about this. One, I forget. One is, we talked about the North Star, and one thing that I actually forgot to mention about that is about when you're creating those, I'm pretty sure you experience this too. Oftentimes those goals could be quite ambitious, just not to say bonkers, depending again of your leadership, right? Sometimes they go, okay, well, we will want to do this number by the end of the year. How do you make sure that, those goals are realistic? Oftentimes you're like, okay, let's say, for example, for this podcast, I say, okay, by the end of this year, I want to have 100,000 followers. Now, if I say that, I need to have a plan, right?
Yes.
That allows me to think about, okay, I've got, I don't know, 1,000 in the last month, and I've done this, and therefore, if I do this, I will be able to hit that goal. That's how I think about those goals.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, a lot of stakeholders come out with these crazy goals, and everybody in the room is sitting there going, how are we going to do that?
Yep.
And there is no actual plan of execution other than we have to be ambitious.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? Like, you've been in that position where you have to really build those relationships. You understand the ambitions of the stakeholder, which you have to manage really well. You go, okay, cool. I see where you want to go with this, but what is the plan of action? Like, how do you deal with those situations about those North Star metrics?
Every goal that you set, you're absolutely right, has to come with an actual plan. Or a session where you all sit down together and go, how can we achieve those? I am a really big believer in setting these big goals because I think it gets people to think outside of their box or their current roadmap. I find, and do you do roadmaps in your current role?
We try to. Okay. I don't want to say we do, but I say we try to.
Okay, so it's interesting. Everyone hates roadmaps.
Yes.
Everyone hates a topic. Like, everyone gets kind of uncomfortable and starts shuffling in their seats. It's a really tricky exercise to do, whether you're in a design role, product role, or when you're working with stakeholders. Everyone loathes the moment of when they have to present their roadmap. So to me, setting these goals and then having a brainstorming session with the team to go, how can we achieve that, actually removes you from that set roadmap. We need to deliver these 10 features by the end of a year. It actually gets people to zoom out and go, okay, that sounds like a crazy goal, but how might we achieve that? And it could be through some of the things we do in the product, or maybe we invest more in sales, or maybe we invest more in some marketing campaigns. So I think the ultimate first step is to actually zoom out and really think about all the different things that you could be doing to achieve those goals. But then, of course, for whoever set the goal, to also then be realistic that if the team doesn't come to a conclusion of how could we achieve those, to then adjust the goals. And usually if you've been in a company for a while and you have some benchmarks from the previous year that you can base it on, it's a lot harder actually now in our startup where we're really early stage, we launched this year. You kind of my only recommendation is to just start somewhere and then keep adjusting as you learn. You say numbers don't lie, they do. You can put in wrong numbers, you can be wrong, and that's okay, even when you're working with metrics and numbers. Yeah,
that's right. And I think for the companies that I've worked with roadmaps, that's a big one. Like, and mainly those roadmaps, I think the problem with that is that they are not. I think it's very hard to get those people, like you said, in that room and then get them to zoom out. Because what I found, and this is my perspective of things, is that a lot of the stakeholders in their different fields, they get too into the weeds of things, and actually getting people to zoom out is actually very hard.
100%.
Right? And then oftentimes, because of this reason, then, like you said, those big goals, they become just impossible to do because they are willing to go down this particular rabbit hole and look at all the things that are wrong here instead of actually zooming out and go, okay, well, that's the goal. Maybe actually we don't need to do any of this because we could potentially just go with this new product or whatever it is.
Exactly. And I think that's the point. The point is not that you're absolutely spot on with the number that you set for the rest of a year and then you hit exactly this number. More times than not, I see teams not hitting those, or they were completely wrong with setting these targets, or they find another opportunity halfway through the year and things change. And that's completely okay and actually encouraged. Right. To me, the value lies in having that conversation, having that from an executive level or leadership level to go, this is where we need to go. This is where we want to go. Involve everyone in the process on how can we get there to then build, whether you're in marketing or in sales or in product and design, to then think, how can we contribute with the things that we're good at to these goals, and then to set that plan for the year, but then also to adjust and learn and over the year as you learn more what works and what didn't. So it's more about the conversation and the exercise than the specific number that I focus on. Right.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, and when I talked to Brendan Jarvis about this, a lot of those simple stuff that you put out, like this is actually very simple. Right? You put these people in a room, you have a conversation. That simple exercise is absolutely bonkers in practice.
It's the hardest thing to do. It's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
But that's why I am so passionate about metrics. And it's not about the particular, the really detailed graphs and knowing every single data point of your product. That's really not what this is about. It's more about having that conversation of what really matters. What's our North Star? What's our hero metric? What's the one metric that really matters? And now, how does product contribute to this? How does marketing, sales contribute to all of these things?
Let me ask you this. There's two things I wanted to ask you. So the first, before I forget, is identifying vanity metrics. But before we get into that, when you have a product that is capable, and again, this goes all the way back to vanity metrics, I'm sure, but when you have a product that is able to sell but not retain, right? This is one where it becomes very tricky, because let's say you set this goal up and your goal is to hit this mark, right? Now you hit that mark at the end of the year and everybody went, we did it, we managed to hit that goal. But what happens is that 3 new customers paying this much, but actually we churn 7 that didn't find the value in the product. And when this becomes a cycle, especially there are industries where the total addressable market is so huge that you can have products that continue to churn, but you can still sell them to new customers.
That doesn't sound like a healthy business strategy.
Right? But sometimes it's hard to, like you said, if you look at that, you go, well, there's something wrong there, right?
Yes.
Clearly.
Yeah.
But it's hard to sometimes get people to see that because of these vanity metrics that come in the form of revenue.
Yeah.
Right? And they say, no, but we did it. Like we are doing really well. We actually selling in new markets. We're doing this. And it's like, well, but every customer we sign up, they are not getting the value that they thought they would get. Then they churn. Then we sell it to another person.
Yeah.
And then they churn. And that is kind of hard for some people to see. You know what I mean? I don't think it's hard. I think they ignore it.
Yeah. Well, it's actually a really common business problem to have. And it's actually really expensive to acquire any new customer compared to retaining and getting more out of your current. So if I was a business leader in that business and I would see that, I would argue that even just from a financial point of view, that is not a healthy metric either. Yeah. You're right. And sometimes people focus, I think that's when we can talk about vanity metric in a second, but when you zoom in too much on just one thing without seeing the context around it, that's often where the problems start. So if you just look at the revenue, you might be doing okay. But as soon as you put it into relation with something else, for example, how many customers churn and how much does it cost us to acquire each new customer, are you still making actually that much money at the end of the day?
Yeah, that's right.
So even just if you put it into simple financial models, it probably won't look as healthy. So one of the things when I talk to vanity metrics can be on financial level, it can be on more when you're measuring different product metrics, for example. You can measure total number of signups, and that in itself usually doesn't tell you much. As soon as you do put it into relation with something else, so you compare it with something.
Right.
So usually when something has a percentage, a metric has a percentage, that often makes it already a lot more insightful because you're comparing one thing with the other. So for example, you're comparing signups through to who's still there after 3 months. So your 3 month retention, that's usually a percentage. You have a 20% of customers are still there after 3 months of signing up. That's a lot more useful than just knowing 5 people signed up.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's one of the first things I do.
Simple.
Put things into a comparison or a ratio, a percentage in some way to get some perspective on that one number. And I would say the same for your example on the total revenue. That in itself might be fine, but when you compare it to how much you spend on acquiring new customers, you might not have that much left at the end of the day.
What if you actually, the numbers still look healthy when you compare it with acquisition, but the pattern still is worrisome, is it not? Depends
what the product is. Some products can be more of a one-off use case, and then it might be fine. If you're more in the, for example, entertainment industry, and your product is meant to be used certain hours a week and over a long period of time, then obviously you don't want that churn. So I actually always ask the question first, what is the ideal usage of your type of product? What does value actually look like? Because it depends quite heavily on what the actual product does.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
In our case, we don't see businesses need a new business loan every 2 weeks. So I would never look at, do they come back after 2 weeks? Ideally, we match them and then they're off growing their business. That churn in a way might be a good thing. And I know actually, finally, I'm making some comparisons with dating apps today, but I remember, I think it was Bumble that did a good churn number. So they want people to
because
find their match.
Success means that they're not using the app anymore.
Exactly. Exactly. So I know no one wants churn itself. It sounds like a bad thing, but it really depends what the use case is. What is the customer value that you're looking for in your product? Yeah, exactly. So if you go into a dating app with the goal of finding a partner, if you're still there after 3 years, exactly, you get the point. Yeah.
That's actually a very good one. Oh man, there's so much I wanna cover here, but what comes to mind here is, again, that healthy balance of the intersection that I think you cover very well in terms of product needs, business needs, and also business ambitions, and being able to, the whole impact mapping stuff that you can do, where you can actually see, okay, this function here and this product that we're doing, this feature actually impacted this particular goal that we're going here. Sitting at that intersection of the Venn diagram, how do you balance all of these things together? Because you're doing this with your product. Like if you could help a CEO right now that's going through this tangent of, man, I don't know, if I need to address this or if I need to put more focus on this, how do you find that healthy balance?
I have a really brilliant mentor or someone I work with quite closely who gives me a lot of great advice, and he's built a lot of different businesses over the years. And he always says business is very simple, and you just have to find the one thing that really drives, that really moves the needle or breaks the business. So there's again so many things you could be doing in your day to day, but if you actually zoom out and have the ability to zoom out and to really focus on where is it that we need to go, what has to be true, or if we don't do this, we might not be there in a year anymore. So it's finding those core mechanics. I don't know if I have a really good answer to this, but it's finding the absolute core drivers of what you're doing and how you need to get there without getting lost in the detail. And it's a really hard skill, and I'm still learning it, but I guess the message here is to simplify, to zoom out, to try to find the one thing that really matters and reduce all the noise.
Yeah. And I think that it comes to that point of separating signal from noise. And I feel like this is a good avenue to go into one thing that I find oftentimes very tricky, especially when you're dealing with stakeholders that are very sales-led, is that oftentimes when you zoom out, right, basically what they end up finding, because they're very smart people, is that they go, wait, we could be doing this because there's a market for that. So let me just give you an example on the top of my dome. Let's say you start an alternative milk product, and then you go, okay, I can make the best almond milk, right? And you put the almond milk out, and it's selling. It's not doing amazing, but it's selling. And instead of figuring out how to sell more of that milk, if you zoom out, you go, wait, but there's also oat milk, and there's also hemp milk, and then as many seeds that you can think of, right? And that market is growing. So you identify a total addressable market, and then what you start doing, because you assume that is going, actually, I want to do that, and I want to do that so that I have more products in the market, right? Resources is a big thing here, but the resources, if you don't have the resources to put the right time into creating valuable products for each one of those that you're doing, you might end up shooting yourself in the foot, right? Of going too thin.
Like how do you not get distracted by 20 different things that you could be doing?
Yes, that's actually that's the best way to put it. It's like, I'm just trying to give you examples of different things, but yes.
No, those are real examples. Yes, there's so many things we could be doing.
Yeah, because there's so many things that you could be doing, right?
Yes.
And it's just focusing the right resources into the right areas. Again, as simple as it sounds, sometimes it's the hardest thing to do.
Very much so. I always think of trying to find a handful of bets that we put in there, and it can't be more. So I always have 3 to 5 max per quarter. So to put that into a framework thinking or in a system, we have these yearly goals. We have that revenue, that business growth goal, that North Star metric that we want to get to. And now usually on a quarterly basis, we go, what are the 3 to 5 bets that we place? And these are not your specific roadmap delivery items with, we have to deliver this feature by that day. It's more, I believe we should put a lot of focus on partnership channels or on sales or on improving our onboarding experience, whatever it might be. But then just to limit it to these 3 to 5 bits and be really strict with that.
Right.
If something new comes in, I think there's something to be said about being open to opportunities.
Yes, and, that's a very good point.
I know you just said if someone is sales-led, I don't think that's a problem. I think that's actually a good thing if someone thinks of all these different opportunities in market and they're actively out there spotting different ways they can grow their business. I think that's amazing. The key is just to go, okay, if we want to chase down this new path that we just discovered, what is it that we're out of these 3 to 5 bets we've just said, which one are we sacrificing? So one comes in and something else needs to give. You can't just keep adding to the list and it just grows throughout the year. And then at the end of the year, you end up doing none of it right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. And like I said, also think, like you said, I also think that being sales-led and identifying opportunity is amazing. I think the core there, though, is that you have to really balance it correctly, right? And I've seen this, one of the most, especially for a product designer, that it was a bit frustrating was when the product starts shaping into a sales tool, right? So you're no longer thinking of how may I deliver value to this customer to solve this particular problem and make this the most delightful experience they could have. But how can I show that this product has a perspective of value? Like it looks like it has a lot of stuff, because then it will help me to sell it quicker. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
And all of these things, again, it comes into the balance, identifying an opportunity, being able to go there and taste the waters. And like you said, balancing that out. And then again, another side of that is when you have a product and that product starts shaping into a sales tool, a product that looks attractive, but actually in practice does not deliver the value.
I see.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a problem. I think if your product at the end of the day really delivers value, and it's funny listening to this now, I had to laugh a little bit because now I'm the one telling the design and the product team to build these things because it will help me close a deal. So I feel a little bit guilty, not guilty listening to you.
No, but I think you're right though, in terms of like, oftentimes as designers, I always say this, is that you have to also put yourself in that position, right?
You do.
You have to, and I think if you're a designer listening to this, it only takes for you to sit down on one of these like sales calls.
Yes.
To actually empathize with your own salesperson, right? Because oftentimes as product designers, we focus on the customer, of course, on the end user, let's call it. And that's our job, right? His job is to serve their needs and understand them and empathize with them. And oftentimes we forget to empathize with the person that's actually selling it to them. And how can we make their lives easier as well?
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, there are a couple of things here. So one is, I think if it helps, I believe that's what we're doing, or at least I'm trying to justify. No, just joking. I think if your product really delivers value and putting this one thing in there, that's maybe where some German pragmatism could help. If you're putting this one thing here that will get the deal over the line and then the customer starts using it and gets a lot of value, then to me, that's a great thing to do. It helps you get the product into the door of your customers. If your product on the other side, if it just looks like it's delivering value and then you just sell it, you take the money, but it actually doesn't. It's not a useful tool. It's not actually what the customer really needs or should use. Then it obviously, we're talking about something completely different. So there's always so much nuance in this, I find.
Yeah, it is.
Sometimes it can be the right thing to put something in for the sake of closing or getting more customer attention in converting those deals if your product then also really delivers on the value to the customer.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the other side to that, and that's why it's so nuanced, like you said, is that you might do this one job or this one feature that definitely helps you close that deal because serves that particular customer, but because of resource allocation, you stop serving these other customers here, right? So despite of you putting this deal over the line, you might actually allocate resources in a different space. So I think understanding that balance is always very important, right? We usually at work, we always have these sort of different swim lanes that we looked at, and we always have one open, which is we need to make sure that we are serving these people here. And then we have one open that is like new opportunities, something comes up, we need to help with this particular feature that we don't have, but it will help a deal over the line, stuff like that. And that balance is very healthy as well.
Absolutely. That's actually it's a really big challenge when you sell to big enterprises and you have a lot of large customers that pay a lot of money and they ask for a lot of custom feature.
That's very true.
It's definitely an art to then always go and ask yourself, is this a feature that is really custom to their workflows, or is it also going to help other? Right.
That's right.
Like
that's a good exercise.
Sometimes the customer has to actually update their workflows and processes, not make you change your product to fit them.
That's true.
But if it's a common theme and you see 3 or 4 customers giving you similar feedback, then it's absolutely something valuable to do. So it always, again, it depends.
It's
and
nuanced.
It's nuanced.
Yeah, it's very nuanced. I think that's a good point though. There's many features. I think I can think of examples actually in our product where a customer has requested something that really helped them in their workflow. And then we evaluated that and went, actually, you know what? These will serve this person. So 100% will just not only get this deal over the line, but it will actually help as a new feature for this to serve these other customers.
100%. We currently have the same, by the way. We have 10 different lending providers on our platform. Everyone has their own individual processes. And so we have to make the same calls, right? Is this just one specific request or is this going to help everyone? But one thing I really wanted to touch on that you said that I really liked was for product designers or product people to jump into sales calls and to build that empathy.
Yeah.
It's something I actually did a little bit involuntarily over the years. As part of Rome, we were a digital consultancy. We were building digital products for all sorts of different companies.
Sorry, my bad.
No, you're all good.
What I went the other way.
I'll repeat this.
Sorry, my bad.
You're good. You want some mate?
Actually, I would.
Maybe
have
this is the time.
Have you drank some?
Not yet. No, just before.
We've been going on for like 50 minutes.
I know. Has it been 50?
Yeah.
Oh my God. We just got so caught.
Yeah, that's why these conversations I could talk to about for hours, especially with somebody like you, because there's so much to learn from that.
Thank you.
But yes, thank you for the mate. Shout out to my friend Emiliano. But look at this. Do I have to evaluate which mate do I like best?
Only if the answer is the right answer.
For people listening to this who don't know what this is mate. It's an Argentinian drink. It's actually very, very delicious. I actually really like it. Many Colombians and people like that, you give it to them and they're like, what is that? Give me a coffee. But I actually really do enjoy it.
I love it. I drink it every day.
You drink it every day?
Every day.
I drank this every day when I was at university.
Okay.
Yeah, because I had an Argentinian teacher that introduced me to it. And I fall in love with it. And I would just to carry the flask and everything around. And funny enough, one day, for example, I was going in a bus, and the bus driver wouldn't let me on the bus because he was like, you can't bring drugs into the bus open like that. And I was like, dude, this is not drugs. This is tea. Like I was explaining to him. Because he looks, for people don't like, looks a little bit odd.
It does. People look at me in the office sometimes.
Yeah. I hope that Messi helped to globalize that a little bit. Understand
it is becoming more. Yeah, I've seen it pop up on the health podcasts and everywhere now. So a lot of people talk about the health benefits, and obviously I got introduced to mate through my partner Amy, and we went to Argentina, and I got my own mate over there, and ever since then I've been drinking every day. I love it.
Nice. I told Emiliano he needs to help me curate it and get my own again. So we'll get into that. But anyway, sorry, we were back into sales calls.
Yes, the tension between. I think that I actually did a lot of sales over the years, especially when I was at Rome. We were building digital products for all sorts of different companies. And so my job, especially as my team grew and they were kind of the ones actively working on the projects, and that allowed me to step out and to go, okay, what really helps the business right now? In our case, that was doing pitches, big RFPs, so request for proposals.
Yeah, that's right.
To banks to, help them with their digital transformation or their digital platforms that they want to bring to life. So I actually ended up doing years of sales, and it really... I have so much respect for people who do selling.
Oh, 100%.
I don't think people appreciate how hard it is.
Yes, it is.
How much you have to put yourself out there.
Oh, it's so hard.
And at the end of the day, it's I think sometimes in product and design and similar roles, we're so focused on the craft and the amazing things that we create. And it can be a little bit less measurable than, for example, in sales either. You close the deal or you don't.
Or you don't, that's right.
And it's a really harsh reality. So I always encourage people to, in product teams, to just jump into sales calls to, first of all, build that empathy with the sales team, because I do think there's often quite a bit of a divide and tension between them. And actually, most people then realize after joining some of these, A, how hard it is to be in a sales role, and then B, that you're actually trying to achieve the same things and you're working towards the same goals. You just have a different way of getting there usually. But I always say use a sales conversation like a discovery, like a customer discovery session, right? You're actually learning so much about what your customers, what's drawing them to your product and your service.
What questions they ask, what type of...
It's so insightful. So I think it's a big gap. And I think more product people, design people, or even engineers who are curious should join some of these sales conversations. It's mind-blowing.
Yes. I started doing that because I found myself and like yourself in a product management role, and then suddenly I'm doing onboardings, and then suddenly and
next minute you'll be doing RFPs and
exactly, because it comes
watch out, it goes quick.
It comes to a point where because you're like, so much about the product, because of course you lead the team and you're building it, then you become basically the best advocate for the product, and then you are the first person to sell it.
Exactly right. That's exactly how I got into sales. Spot on. You're just like, a thing or two about it. You're passionate about this, and it works.
Yeah, it works. It definitely does. And as a product designer, again, getting into those positions only is going to help you. Like, is only going to make you a better designer for everything else, even if it's just communication skills, talking to people.
I was going to ask you, how did you find, especially the first few sales meetings you joined with customers?
I was fine. I don't know. I always had this, it's like this podcast, right? I started it. I'd never done it. And I find it quite natural to just be talking to people like this. And I think my personality also helps a little with that. I'm just kind of a bit of, really relaxed.
Yeah.
I come from the music side, so I used to get on stage and play metal music.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's why I think that.
We should talk about metal in a second.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah. So I used to be that kind of guy that you see me in the corner and you're like, okay, and then you suddenly see me screaming on stage and you're like, wait, was that the same? What?
The same person.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of like put my hat on and just try to sell the products. And I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, I looked at it that way. You want people to use your product. You want people to be able to get value out of the product. And oftentimes getting that over the line to get them to see it, you need to go and sell it. You need to show the value. So look at it like that.
That's awesome. That's awesome experience.
Yeah. And I think, again, for designers listening to this, 'cause I know this podcast is probably going to come out. You're going to share it. A lot of people follow you. If you're a designer, man, like that is super important to add to your skill set. Like, don't get into the weeds of the tools, and that's important. I mean, it's important, of course, and usability testing and all this kind of stuff you can explore, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. But this simple stuff gives you a perspective that is so valuable to any business, and that will add you to your skill set as a designer.
I couldn't agree more. That's awesome that you're doing this.
Yeah. So, okay, now I think we talked about so much that these notes are now off the window.
We went off script.
Yeah. It's not a script, but I had it organized. I'm like, we talked about this already. We talked about this. But
see,
that
that's
is
the thing
great.
with plans. Life happens.
This is what happens when you put a roadmap together. You need to adjust it.
Exactly. You never follow it, and things come, and point proven.
Yeah. And that's one thing actually we didn't talk about as well with roadmaps. One of the hardest things is for people to understand that is a flexible thing. Like a lot of the, especially I find this, especially with engineers, is a little bit tricky because they're very sort of focused on, okay, and we need to do this. And then something comes in, like you said, an opportunity, new product, whatever it is. And then suddenly you need to adjust that roadmap, readjust resources, all these things. And sometimes for them, it's really hard to understand this. And again, to go back to the previous point where if you then understand the opportunity in the market a little bit, zoom out and go, oh shit, okay, yeah, no, we should definitely be doing that, you know?
Yes, yeah, which is why it's so good to focus on the actual outcomes you're wanting to achieve, the goals, the metrics.
Yes.
We still set roadmaps or like goals for delivery dates in the short term.
Yeah.
Once we know, okay, this is a priority and we want to get this feature out in the next 2 to 4 weeks, we set a date and that's it.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
I don't set a date for in 6 months' time, we're going to deliver this feature.
That's a very good point.
Especially in the early stages of a business, it becomes a bit more predictable later on.
Yeah.
But especially in the early stages, you just got to be flexible and really focus on the outcomes you're trying to achieve and be open to how you're going to get there.
Yeah, especially, and if you develop software, you know this by heart, but doing those long-term ones, it's just so difficult. Like you're never gonna
No one likes doing it.
No one likes doing that. It's just so many variables that could happen. But this sort of leads me into one thing I want to talk to you about, which is the book, really. Data, how to use it. I love one stuff about the book. I haven't read the entire book. I'll be lying if I say that. But I did sort of looked at the overview of what sort of the core message of this was. And one thing that's I think important, I learned this the hard way, to track less. Like that part is super important, right? And you see, we see this with data, right? We can collect so many data, but you need to be able to actually understand that data and what to do with that data. And oftentimes, the more data you get is not the better.
It's actually more confusing.
It's all more confusing. That's right. So being very smart about what you track, I think, is a great starting point for you to be able to understand data and then start utilizing data. A lot of teams get overwhelmed when they go, okay, we need to track
metrics
everything.
Overload.
Yeah, it's like a metrics overload. That's right. We need to track how many people click on this button and how many people go from here to here to here. And then we have to track, how far down the page do they scroll and all of this kind of stuff. And then once you have the data back, you're like, what do I do with this now?
Yes. And what now? Or that, so what?
Yeah,
is
exactly.
The famous question.
Talk a little bit about this because I think that's important and you've written about this. So give us some of the juice.
The juice. It starts with a really simple principle that you just mentioned. It's track less, but better. It's actually a design principle. It's from a German designer. So maybe that's, again, we're coming back to the pragmatism.
Yeah.
It was from industrial designer Dieter Rams, and he was really famous for designing things more simply and really being focused on the functionality and simple design of things.
Yeah.
So it's following a little bit of that principle in everything that you do, including data. That's where really I've seen it. We've talked about the metrics overload. People try to do too many things and they just get overwhelmed by all the different data points. And so it's thinking about, again, where are we trying to get to and what are the key 4 or 5 metrics that we can put underneath that are early signals, our leading indicators that we talked about earlier, that will get us there. And then the hard part is to just stop and focus on that first. Yeah. And to try to really get actual, that's where the book kind of came from, to get actual insight from it. That was the biggest gap that I've seen. People look at these dashboards and they'll go, okay,
And
That's some cool graphs.
Yeah. And
so what? What do we do now?
Yeah, exactly.
The actual point is, first of all, that you create a bit of that focus of where are we trying to get to, what does really matter to our business.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is to then also look at the data and get what are we doing with this information? What's the actual insight from it?
What is actionable?
Correct. Right? Correct. So it actually always starts with what question are we trying to answer?
Yeah.
So for example, I'm currently trying to answer how many people are coming to our platform and actually getting real value within the first week of signing up. Mm-hmm. In our case, that looks like a business owner signs up and they get different options of different funding providers presented to them, usually within a day on our platform. And so if that doesn't happen, then none of the other things matter. And so that's right. Really what we're trying to focus on. And that's the question I'm trying to answer is, are people actually getting the service that they're expecting? Mm-hmm. And if not, if customers come and it's crickets, then we need to actually look deeper and try to find out, do we need to talk to our finance providers, our partners in the platform, or do we need to change the onboarding? So it's always starting with an actual question. What do you want answering? Then you measure it and then you make decisions out of it. And so that's kind of the key principle behind it. Yeah. And then, I mean, in the book, I go into various different parts of that journey. It's first, how do you set the right metrics? That's usually the first part.
Oh, yes.
How do you find that North Star? How do you find the right acquisition, activation, engagement, retention metric that lead to it? Then how do you actually set up the tools? And that's where really I go back to track less but better. Start with just setting up maybe 20 different events that track different user actions in your app and just stop and make sure these are actually tracking right. There are no bugs, they're actually firing, you're actually getting the right, because that's a big problem as well. People then lose trust in your data if it's not actually tracking right and analytics are wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
So that creates a whole nother issue. And then the last thing is also, how do you then share those things back? That's really where the insight comes from. So ideally you started all of this with where are we trying to get to? What questions are we trying to answer?
Yeah.
And then that means that when you're presenting back to your stakeholders, for example, so if you're in charge of a new feature rollout and you want to present that back to your stakeholders, you actually also share it with a narrative around it. What have we learned from it? Because that's ultimately what we're trying to get to, is not to tell a story or to say that we were right or wrong. It's about actually learning what worked and what didn't, and to actually answer our questions.
The simple stuff like being able to use the right metric. And, you talk about percentages. Sometimes people throw out, we had 20,000, but it was like, and it's kind of hard to wrap your head around it when you compare numbers like that. But if you go 20% versus this percent, okay, suddenly it's a lot easier to comprehend.
Exactly. Or compare it to same time last year or the last 6 months.
And just make it as easy as possible. And I think one of the stuff that's super excited about this, and I'm pretty sure you're going to agree with this, is that we are in a moment right now where that couldn't have been easier in terms of like data processing and the capacity for you to actually just feed your data into something and it give you actionable insights from that, for example. So if you understand data and whatever, then it's just a little bit easier. But if you knew, there's so many tools out there where you can hook up your data, like you said, track it properly, start simple, but you feed it into that, you then download a report, and then you can hook it up into a large language model and go, hey, what can you tell me about this?
Yes.
Oftentimes, even the same data set can give you different insights if you know how to use it correctly, right? So all of those things are quite important to understand. I love that about data. Anything else we want to cover about data?
I think it's really just to put things into perspective is probably the thing that I wanted to highlight the most, because that's really when you can find out whether something is going well or not. And that's the most basic advice, but also the most common mistake I see. And you've just captured it really well, to not try to overcook it. Just start with something that usually people don't stay there. They then expand. They get confident with data and then expand from there. But I think the point I was trying to make is to just get started simple. Don't overthink it. Don't think, oh, I can't do it. I'm not analytical. We have so many tools out there now that make this a lot easier for you as a product person or designer. I now have a design and engineering team at Bizzy, for example. They also on the dashboard, they're also exploring how are people using our application. It's not, it gotten a lot more accessible.
Yeah, right.
So the point, and now it becomes actually, I'm really excited about this now because we have all these amazing tools and it's become so accessible. It really comes down to asking the right questions and the zooming out that it becomes more of a thinking exercise because AI and self-serve tools can do everything else for us.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, let me just, before we move on to the next bit, let's talk about tools for a second. Can you share just some of the stuff that maybe you use for your day-to-day analytics, stuff like that? Mixpanel you use?
I do. I've been using Mixpanel for probably 8-9 years now, a long time.
Yeah.
I've used different tools over the years. Also some A/B testing tools. So it depends a little bit how early the product or the company was, or the more advanced you then start to use A/B testing tools like A/B Tasty or VWO was great for that part. But that's usually more when you have a lot of data, a lot of users to work with. So now with Bizzy, we're pretty early stage. We have Mixpanel set up and everything else. If I need to do any outside reporting, I'll chuck it in a spreadsheet from there, manipulate my own. It's pretty, but I'm also trying to keep it as simple as possible because also with the people that I present the business results to, you don't want to put 100 different metrics on there either. So when I'm saying I'm doing a spreadsheet, it's pretty simple stuff. I'm just trying to visualize a funnel really.
Yeah.
So anything that I don't get from the tool, I'll put in there. Or I'll use Claude is actually amazing for if you want to visualize and create a quick interactive. So if you have a spreadsheet, if you have raw data and you want to create a quick interactive dashboard view with that specific spreadsheet data set, you can just chuck it into Claude. I mean, take out whatever company sensitive information you don't want to have in there. But, if it's just like some random numbers without any context, no one knows what it's about. You can put it into Claude and it actually builds with Claude artifacts a literal clickable chart. And it's super nice for presentations and super easy to create.
Yeah, 100%. And also if you wanna take it even a step further, one thing I've been exploring lately is actually workflows with tools like NAN that actually tap into these particular repositories. And so that you can get like a weekly email that reports on your analytics with a particular, prompt in mind. So if you're looking at a particular question, you put that into your agent. The agent goes, retrieves the data from this source, uses Claude, or what Claude is usually the best for that type of stuff, and then reports it back to you. Stuff like that.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah. So doing stuff like that, where so you don't have to constantly be there. And the reports that it generates are amazing because, again, you can prompt the agent to give you a summary with actionable insights. So it not only presents the data, but kind of tries to make sense of what the data is there based on the prompt. So that's super cool. Like I think that's like activating those type of stuff. Again, super easy to do, no code.
I love that idea. Yeah, when I use Google Sheets, there's also now Gemini directly in your browser or in your sheet.
Yes, yeah, that's
and you can also ask it to, if you have I recommend do it with only the company, like a business version. But you can then ask it to analyze or give you some summary findings. Again, ask it some specific questions. It sounds like that's what you're doing with the agent.
That's exactly what I do with the agents.
The summary is a great idea. And then do you share it with, like, who does it go to? Does it go to the team?
Well, usually I get it for myself. And then if there's anything valuable to share from that, I usually share it. But I'm right now in this tangent of everything trying to automate it with the use of AI. So I've explored a lot of this kind of stuff, and I find it fascinating. I think, again, right now I'm just trying to validate the tools, but I can see so many companies could use this for simplifying a lot of the manual work.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What Lucas called the admin killers. It's like there's stuff you're gonna have to report on a feature. This thing kind of reports back to you automatically.
So good. And then, you could also then share it with the wider stakeholders, whoever is interested in it.
Oh,
right?
100,
Yeah, I mean, it's brilliant.
If you have a company that actually wants to get these reports, you set up for the entire company and it does the whole thing. So
exactly.
So much potential.
Yeah, we did manually for such a long time, right?
Yeah.
And I do actually do a lot of these things manually right now because we're really early stage. But then, you would have so much data to kind of work with so much usage data as well.
Yeah. So the data part for us is huge, especially with it at the scale that we collect. But those tools are incredible.
Yeah.
And for example, just for product designers out there that are listening to this, something I got into myself. Like, I didn't want to have to rely on engineers to do this for me. Jump in, do a couple of YouTube tutorials, and then you're on your way. Like, literally, that's as simple as it sounds. Sometimes you have to write some Python code. You put it back into Claude, like, fix me these up, put it back in.
You don't even have to write the code anymore.
Exactly. So
the only problem is when something breaks and it doesn't work, and if you're not a coder to debug it. But.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know what I found? I actually used the share screen function, and it's crazy how good that is.
Yeah.
Like I write Python code and I get this error code. I have no idea what's going on. It's like, okay, and then it will just go and fix it for you. Yeah. It's incredible. Anyways.
Yeah.
So much potential there. Again,
awesome
in
ideas.
the era of AI, there's so much stuff you can do with data. So it's just the tools are there for you. And I think the main core thing here for advice is to start simple, track less, but better. There you go.
Perfect.
Okay. I want to try something new, and let's do it now. Before I don't want to do it at the end, but I wanted to start a new segment in the podcast, especially with people like yourself. I don't have a name for this section yet. So at the moment, let's just call it binary choices, something like this. And what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to give you a dilemma.
Okay.
And then you have two choices.
Okay.
And you just have to pick one. If you want to give an explanation as to why you pick that.
Is that a completely hypothetical
situation? Yeah. It's a hypothetical situation. It's not
asking for a friend.
It's not in relation to anything in particular. But I found this quite interesting. It came up in a conversation. I was like, dude, that is actually a good way to put it in a podcast and get some really nice insights from that. Actually, I have several here. So we might as well. Can you give me a number between 1 and 3?
2.
Okay. You'd rather have a founder with an inflated ego, but flawless executions and track record, or a humble leader with average execution skills?
My very first gut reaction is a humble leader. Very clear choice. Do you want me to expand on this, or is this a clear binary?
It's up to you. Yeah, okay. If you want to expand, for sure.
The reason for this is I love curious people, and I think especially in the line of work that we do, so many things is based on hypotheses and experiments, and I don't think any of us know whether we're right or wrong. Yeah. And I like approaching things myself this way, and I also appreciate when other people have that same curious mindset based on hypotheses. Let's test, let's experiment. Yeah. We could be wrong, but let's learn. It's more a learning mindset.
Okay, another one for you. As a product advisor, you rather work with a technical founder who dismisses user research or a business founder who doesn't understand technical constraints?
Those are tough. Okay, the first one I found a bit easier to respond to. I think it depends on the product and the type of business.
Yeah. You can actually have that on this one. You can actually have the depend on. So actually, let me do another one for you.
Yeah.
So you rather invest in an average team with an excellent product market fit, or a great team with an average or unproven product?
I mean, again, define what a good or product team is.
So a team that perhaps is not the most skillful or doesn't have as much experience, but the product that they have is definitely solving a real problem, like that's already identified, solidified, versus a team of great engineers, very skillful people, but the product is a bit like all over the place. Which one would you rather go with?
Those are tough questions. I would probably go with the team that is really skilled, assuming they're also really open to trying new things.
I would also
changing.
have chosen that. Yeah, I think so. I think a great team is able to perhaps pivot and find the right product market fit.
Exactly right. I mean, if I look back to all my experiences, it's always been the times where I work with amazing people that I learned from, that I got the most out of it. And sometimes the thing that we did wasn't working in year 1, but then we tried something else and then it did work in year 2 or 3. So I think with a great people and team, you can achieve a lot.
Yes. These ones are going to be complicated. Oh, actually, now that we talked about all of these things, these ones are going to be tricky. Okay, this one is interesting. With limited resources, prioritize 1, fixing critical bugs that affect 5% of power users, or adding a feature requested by 60% of casual users?
That's a mean question. I actually had a really similar real life example of this.
Okay.
That was back at Rome. We worked with a company that was building it was over in Europe, large marketplace where you sell, so kind of like Trade Me over here.
Okay.
They had a large portion of their actual revenue and power usage came from the people who came from a very small percentage of users. They were the ones that were selling as a business on their platform. And the other part was obviously very engaged, but a large customer base that wasn't contributing as much to the overall company goals. And obviously you need both, but it actually really helped to focus on the revenue or the financial goal aligned customer base first, because once that was working, you could make it even better for everyone else around it. So it was just more of a sequencing. So to that question, really to focusing on, it depends a little bit what that 5% of the user base if they are your ideal customer that you want to focus on, then it doesn't matter if it's 5 or 60. You more think about the wider picture again, like zoom out. What are we really trying to achieve here?
Right. Okay, next one. Ooh, this one's going to be tough too, I think. 4, 5, or 6?
6.
Ooh,
no.
You picked the hard one. Okay, fair enough. Okay, your next hire should be a brilliant analyst who struggles with stakeholder communication, or a charismatic product evangelist with weak analytical skills.
Can I both?
You pick. You have to choose. These types of questions are interesting because they happen in real life.
They do. They really do. A lot of these things.
You're sometimes interviewing people and you're like, you have an engineer who's like amazing at something. But the personality wise, you're going to be like, oh man, this is going to be quite tricky. And then another ones that are probably not as good technically, but they have an easier personality to deal with stuff like that. It happens in real life. So
it does.
Yeah. What would you pick?
It depends on the need. I think if I really have to give you one or the other, I put a lot of value into the soft skills of people when I hire. And certain things can be learned over time, because if they have a right approach, they're good with people, and the role requires a lot of stakeholder interaction. I find the technical skills sometimes come over time, specific, or can be coached. Now, it depends. If I need a really specific, this is such a tough question. if I'm hiring for a really specific problem and part of a company, and they have people around them that can do the other stuff, they can present it, or I can do it for them, or whatever, then I might go this way. So it depends on the situation. What is the biggest problem I'm trying to solve right now?
Yes. And I think one thing, if I was in that situation, one thing I would consider rather is that, because again, the knee-jerk reaction I would do is exactly what you said. I would rather have somebody who has that personality and it can receive information. I can upskill that person, right? I'll do that every day of the week. But it really depends on what you said. And also, do I have the resources to bring this person to the right? Because a lot of the times, that takes a lot of time. And if you don't have that time, if you don't have the right leader to hold this person's hands and teach them this stuff, then you just throw somebody in the deep end and you're not going to achieve results. So I think that's how I usually approach it, is that, like you said, you look at all these variables before making a decision like this.
But also, is the person coachable? I think that's ultimately in either situation, the person could pick up the other things over time if they're open to it, if they're willing to learn and grow in the role. Yeah.
Okay, I have more here. So you pick 7, 8, or 9.
8.
So your user research shows that users love a feature but never actually use it, or users complain about a feature but they use it constantly. What would you rather have? Definitely
the usage. Like, that's because what people say and what people do is often two different things.
That
was the easiest one out of all.
UX 101.
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, that's why I love analytics, because you actually see what people really do in your product.
Yeah, and it happens a lot with desirability testing.
Yeah.
If you do desirability testing and you're like, you're presenting a problem and they're like, that's a great idea. And then you try to, even if you construct the interview so well that you're not leading them to answer, they still go, oh yeah, I will definitely use that. And then once you have the real product in their hands, they just don't use it.
No, I look for past behavior rather than trying to ask them for future, would you use it?
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good one. Okay, 10, 11 or 12?
11.
Your company culture should prioritize moving fast and breaking things, accepting some failures, or methodical planning and minimizing risks.
Moving fast.
Yes, sir. That's
very clear one.
That's a startup mentality right there.
Yeah, it's the action counts a lot, especially, and I would say it's definitely true for startup, but also for large companies these days, because now, it gets easier and easier to build things for new companies to pop up with a new product.
Yeah.
So you have to really stay nimble and fast. And just like the things you learn by actioning and trying new things is usually worth more than some of the things that might have gone nowhere.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, on that, because that's a very interesting topic about moving fast and experimenting and stuff. Oftentimes that becomes very challenging. Experimentation, especially for smaller companies like you or like us, even us, because we have still quite a small team. We actually have the luxury of experimenting and trying new things out. And the technology is quite flexible at this point. But for example, when I worked in Orion Health, good googly moogly, like doing anything new over there was near impossible, right? Because
there's a different industry.
Yeah, it's different industry. Also, it was legacy technology. We're talking 2013 or something like this.
Yeah.
So, so it's very complicated. I'm not blaming them on saying that, but I'm saying it's actually very hard for them to implement this. And I always wondered if there is like a good middle ground to all of this, right? Because usually it's either or. You have the startup stuff, which essentially is this, move fast, break things. And then you have the other side where things are, very, very slow. There's so much hierarchy and diplomacy involved. I always wonder, like, is there, and of course there are many companies where you've seen this now, where they have a specific innovation team.
A venture team.
Yeah, like a venture team.
I've worked with a lot of innovation and venture teams over the years.
So that's sort of one way of going about it.
Yep.
But I think the problem with those is that they usually have a very clear objective, right? So this is your objective. You go out and try things out. But as far as the overarching functionality of the company, you really don't get that, right?
Yeah.
What do you think of all of this?
I used to bang my head against the wall. I was working a lot and still am in financial services over the last 10 years. I used to work with a lot of banks. So when you just said, trying to work in health, in different legacy systems, banks it's a really tricky environment to really innovate. And I think I built some empathy over the years, because at the end of the day, you're dealing with, in the case of a bank, they need to keep their bank license, first of all, right? They can't just go fast and break things. Breaking things is just not an option.
Yeah,
when you're dealing with people's personal money, their bank accounts, payments,
there's things
health, you can't have that attitude. And I think I used to be early in my career a bit more naive about it and go, no, you should innovate and do the right thing for the customer. And I still have that vision of doing the right thing for the customer, but I think I've now realized the complexity of the landscape and environment that some of these companies have to live in. I worked with a lot of different venture and innovation teams. I was an innovation team at Fletcher Building, actually, which was very early here in my time in New Zealand. Then with a lot of venture teams of different banks, worked with Commonwealth Bank Australia as well.
Okay.
They have a really great, actually really successful ventures part, X15 now. And we were one of the first products as part of that ventures team back then. It was really exciting. I think the biggest challenge is I think these teams have a function and a goal, and they set a certain culture, which is awesome. The biggest challenge is always to link it back to the wider business goals and the business model of wherever you are, in this case, a bank. Yeah. So to give you an example, we did a cash flow insights tool for small business owners now 7-8 years ago. That's kind of how I got into that space that I am now. I absolutely
Makes sense now.
Yeah, I absolutely saw the customer pain points and the problems of small businesses, the ones that were small, no finance advisory, no finance team. They usually don't get the support that the big companies get.
Yeah.
So that's how I cut my teeth, but that's a whole nother story.
Right.
But we built a really great product back then that helped small business owners analyze their cash flow and see how their business is going. So it was very data driven. It would integrate with all the different tools that they use to run their business. And I think that the biggest challenge for us, and I think we just didn't get fast enough to that outcome, was to link it back to, okay, what is a wider bank trying to get out of this? How is this going to link to wider business growth? So we're coming back to the conversation from the start to really link the customer problems and the vision and the product to the wider system. How can we put it into an environment where this is feasible for the bank to run so we can keep expanding it? So long story short, after a few years, we had amazing customer feedback. People loved it. It was a really useful tool for them, but we just couldn't connect. And I think a lot of innovation venture teams face exactly that challenge. It's how do you connect those cool, innovative, new ideas and new value propositions into the wider model. And I think those entities ultimately need to work really, really closely together going forward to make this work. And so my case now is to more be outside of that system in a startup and then partner with those types of institutions. So we're talking to banks, we're talking to large finance providers and trying to really find a way that we can partner, because it is a lot harder for them sometimes to build some of these things, but we have a great customer base and a great product and platform.
Yeah.
But there's still a really valuable part of that ecosystem. So I think it's just being really realistic of who can play which part and who can really move fast and break things versus has different things constraints that they just can't get out of.
Oh, that makes sense now in terms of your business domain knowledge on that space with Bizzy, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I had unfinished business.
Yeah. Perfect. Oh,
Yeah.
This is a great avenue to actually talk about Bizzy for a second, because that's, of course, we mentioned at the beginning. Now you're leading that. You started this company. Did you actually found it? Did you started the whole thing?
I'm one of the co-founders. So I, through a really random, I say random, it's actually quite intentional, but I really knew I wanted to do something in financial services. I finished up at Rome. I took some time off. I was exploring different business ideas. I really saw the huge need for better experiences in the financial sector as well. I think that's still where small businesses or people who, just don't have access to all the things that large investors, large companies have. There's so much opportunity to give people better access to financial services.
Yeah.
I really wanted to do something in that space. And I was connecting with people in that industry that I either used to work with in the past, and through that kind of outreach and exploring and just having coffees and chats and different, kind of tinkering for a few months in the space, I met a couple people who were trying to do something similar in the small business space and actually already had a prototype. They were more from a finance space. I was obviously more from the technology and digital space, but also a lot of financial services background. And we had that same shared passion for small business owners. We love when people, go out on their own, try to do their own thing, whether it's a side project or then grows into a larger business. We still don't think the system is supporting them enough.
Yeah.
And so we found each other.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I'm the one running the business. They were on the board and the directors. They are also involved in other businesses in the finance space. So yeah, we're a small team.
That's
but
very cool.
Very passionate and from very different backgrounds that I think really complementary.
Cool. That's awesome. How is that going? Like, how have you found it? You're now leading the team. You're now the CEO of this company. How are you dealing with all this pressure, all the challenges of being the person to go to, all that kind of good stuff, I would say.
Yes, good stuff. So two things, how it's going. We launched this year.
Okay.
So it's been a really busy year leading up to it, building the platform. We obviously had to also bring different finance providers onto the platform first. We're a marketplace. So, it's like when on Airbnb, you need the hosts and the apartments first before you launched the app to people like guests.
How was that actually? Like, how much friction was that on bringing these on board? Like, was it hard? Was there a lot of diplomacy going on there? Because I bet this is
a lot of selling.
Yeah, I bet like that's gonna be
a lot of selling. Yes, just selling on the vision of what we're trying to achieve. That it's this type of marketplace doesn't exist in New Zealand.
Yeah,
and I'm a firm believer it's absolutely needed. It's the right thing to do. One of the things, to give you a bit more background on it, is we try to make it more transparent for small business owners to find the right provider. So there's one part of it's just really manual and tedious to do weeks of different applications with different providers.
Yeah.
So that's one part of it. But the other thing is also Again, unless you have a large finance team, which small businesses often don't have, or unless you have a finance background, it's really hard to understand the terms. There's a lot of fine print. There's often hidden fees as well.
Yeah.
When you talk about business loans, to be honest, there's a lot of useful things, but there's also a lot of bad things that happened in the past with a lot of loan sharks and people taking advantage and putting things into the fine print. So one of our biggest purposes for building this was really to make it more transparent. So within a day, you have transparent access to all the different choices. The lending providers put the costs of that loan all up front, including anything that otherwise might be hidden a little bit further down in the process. Usually it could be, you obviously pay your interest fee on whenever you get a loan, but there's also sometimes application fees or legal fees to set up the mechanism of getting the money. So there's a lot of things that I think, unless you're being told, I think customers should be told upfront about it. So that was more like the sell on the purpose, what we're trying to do. And then obviously there is a clear value proposition for them as well. Mm-hmm. We basically do a lot of qualification. We really try to understand what is the customer trying to achieve. We collect some of that information. So it's a new lead flow for them as well, basically.
Yeah. So basically you're doing it from both ends, right? These for the customers themselves, bringing them the right lender, but for them as well, bringing them the right customer.
Exactly. So we have a double value proposition.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very, very cool. And it reminded me a little bit of, I had Jason Enner in the podcast as well. He's from MyHR, which again is sort of the same sort of thing. Is this sort of this niche of small, medium businesses needing HR services.
Yeah,
because they don't oftentimes have that. So it sort of reminded me of that a little bit as well. It's a great service they have.
That's awesome. I need to check them out. Yeah.
Yeah, you haven't checked. Yeah, this is great. They basically the HR team they call it the HR team for businesses that don't have one.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's similar in that way that they're trying to serve the electrician or and all the way up to now. I did a lot of work for them, but they now in Australia, they're growing like crazy. They have like football teams and rugby teams now that they're serving. So
yeah, that's a huge, I can see there's huge value in this, right? Again, it's a small businesses who can't afford large finance, large HR, large this and that.
You're in the finance sector. I went recently to Colombia, and one of the things that blew my mind is this whole new era of these new banks or digital banks that are popping off. New Zealand doesn't really have that yet, but it's a very interesting proposition.
Yes.
Like actually open an account and everything, because the interest rates that they offer are tremendous. Mainly there's one bank that dominates, I think it's from Brazil. It's called Nubank.
Yes, they're huge. Yeah, doing incredible.
And the whole... the entire customer experience was outstanding. From getting the card, to the managing everything through the app, absolutely outstanding. So there's so much room for innovation in those industries, I feel.
Yes.
And I think this thing that you're building is just in the right space. And again, in New Zealand, a lot of room to growth, and then obviously expanding to Australia and other markets once it's been sort of proven. So this is very cool.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. It's a really exciting time. I sound like I'm preaching here a little bit, but it's a really exciting time to be in financial services and FinTech.
Yes,
in New Zealand, to give you an idea, it's within the tech sector, FinTech is the one that grows 4 times faster than every other tech sector at the moment. So compared to, health tech and other something agri-tech.
Yeah.
FinTech is, I think, because we've been in New Zealand behind compared to other countries like over in Europe and US and South America. There's so much innovation going on. We've been hampered by regulation.
Yes,
that's finally changing with open banking, while delayed, now finally coming. And there's just a lot of, and the customer problems have just been piling up.
Yes.
So there are so many cool new or not so new anymore fintechs now really coming through the ranks and solving really meaningful problems for different sectors.
Yeah.
And that's what excites me about fintech or financial services so much, because it's so core to our lives.
Yes.
And whether we like money or money driven or not, at the end of the day, we all need to be part of that financial system to have access to, getting our own house for the family or building a business. Like whether we like it or not, money is part of it.
Yeah.
But how do we actually give people access to these different things in the financial system?
Yeah.
And so I found fintech has given in other countries, people who never had a bank account, they have ways to get paid now or to pay their friends. Or here, again, we're serving small businesses. There are other companies solving. There's a really cool, a company that does accounts for business banking called Emerge.
Okay.
So I don't know what you use, but yeah, shout out to these guys. They're doing amazing stuff.
Oh, cool.
So they're a really good New Zealand example. So they're coming out at the moment, and it's a really exciting time to be in the space.
Yeah, 100%. I've seen it especially on investment platforms. I think I invested on some of those ones as well, because it seems to be like you say, that sector that's just booming because of all these things that you just explained. Yes. That's exciting. So how are you feeling with all the responsibility now? With
that was the second
new...
part of the question. It's been an intense year.
Okay.
I always had a lot of responsibility in different roles.
Yeah.
But they've obviously changed, and there's a lot of new things that have come my way this year. I try to take a lot of care of myself while doing that. So I think one thing actually one of my mentors told me is I'm trying to remove myself, like to not take things personally, to prove that, it's a business. We're testing whether the business has legs. I'm not proving myself, although I always have that.
That's a big thing. Yes.
That was actually a huge thing that one of my mentors said to me, and that really stuck with me because I always put a lot of expectations on me personally. That's always how I've operated. And that sometimes is a really good driving force that made me really ambitious and it made me achieve things. But it can also be detrimental. And I've definitely felt that over the last year personally, that I put a lot of really high expectations on me, and that can definitely be a bit too much. So I try to remind myself that, it is not me as a person proving myself, but I'm there doing, bringing my expertise and my skills, and so are other people. And we're all just trying to see if the business, has legs. I mean, we really believe in it, and it has had amazing initial traction in the market, and we have a lot of exciting things coming up in the next few months. So we all see that it has legs, but I'm trying to remind myself that it's not me personally that's proving myself or proving my worth if we're going down that path.
I think that what you just said is so good. Just take a moment I want to just pause for a second to acknowledge that. It's just super important because a lot of the times, especially again with business, especially with founders and stuff, there's so much emotion attached to things. Yeah. Because of course, it's not easy to just go out there and start a business like this and go into this venture and go into all the hurdles of starting one and proving one and all the ups and downs. So there's a lot of emotion into that. And I think what you just said is such a good thing to practice. I'm pretty sure it's hard.
Yes, I don't follow it every day.
But it's such a good thing because even for anything that you do, really, like even, what I'm doing right now with this project or whatever it is to try to see if something works and trying to remove yourself from that. Yeah. I think it's such a good piece of advice.
Yes.
Now let's talk a little bit about the other side of this is, health and well-being, keeping yourself mentally sane, because I know that this could be even sometimes as a project manager, it's a lot of pressure, right? It's a lot of pressure and sometimes could build up as well. A lot of people get built up with emotions and sometimes just explode. It's a common pattern.
I think in any role, right? Yeah. Whether you're an individual contributor and you have a lot of deadlines as a designer or if you're running a company, it's just, I think it's different, but it's all the same type of pressure. It's the same type of emotion. It's the same type of personal pressure we put on ourselves.
Yeah, I guess it's slightly different when you are truly invested on the success of the company, which I think oftentimes, a lot of people see their role as a job. That's it. I'm here to do this and I'm not really, invested on this. But a lot of people, like I consider myself that type of person where I'm truly believe in the vision or whatever it is that we're doing. And I want to put 100% of my energy and time and effort into making it work.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times there's a lot of pressure. And when things are not going well, it could, it can fuck up your mind. Yeah. It can really affect your mental health and your relationships and all of that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that for a second. Like, how do you deal with this type of pressure? How do you keep your relationships healthy? How do you deal with time, which is a huge one, right?
Yeah.
Because oftentimes I find myself in that situation actually where there's just not enough time for doing everything that I want to do.
No, absolutely not.
and then of course you start compromising time with your loved ones and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about that. How do you keep yourself mentally and physically on the top of your game?
Yes. I think there are two things. There's the more emotional and mental side of, how do I keep my mindset healthy, or how do I just, keep sane and deal with some of the struggles I go through. And then there's the more tactical, how do I keep up my energy throughout the week? So they're kind of two different areas for me. On the personal side, I've actually been doing a lot of therapy for now probably 7-8 years. And it started more from just personal issues, a lot of chronic pain back then. And that's how I actually got started and found my therapist, which I'm still with the same therapist until today. And I go still until today every 2-3 weeks.
Okay.
Without a break.
Nice.
And that has been game-changing for me personally. I'm not sure if that works. That's just something that really worked for me. It started off with, more specific topics I wanted to talk about or that came up in my life. But now it's actually often become more of a check-in of how I'm feeling, what am I going through at the moment, what are the things on my mind. And, sometimes I go into these with a specific, this was a challenging situation I faced in my relationship or in work.
Yeah.
Actually, often, and I'll say my therapist, almost my my business coach sometimes. There were so many moments where I've just gone, because it's such a big part of, I'm so passionate about the work that I do. I spend so much time. Yeah. It's just something that I put a lot of energy and focus on. So often now these days, the sessions are about that.
Yeah.
But from a really different angle than maybe other mentors or people I hang out with can look at it. First, it's a very neutral person, zero investment in any of my life choices. So that always helps. And also just to look at it more from an emotional side. How do I show up? How can I focus on the right things? How can I live through stressful situations or stressful periods in my career with purpose behind it? I think that's one of the biggest things I've kind of learned. And I think you just touched on it a little bit, that you really care about, the vision and the things that you're achieving. And that has really helped me get through more stressful periods in time. Or sometimes when I thought, should I just leave this company, do something else? I would have these conversations in that moment and go, is this actually coming from a place of, I'm frustrated with the current situation, but I'm still invested in the purpose. Am I just chasing some random distractions because it might be easier? So it's having those hard conversations. And then I do a lot of exercise. I also, this year, I really got into the habit. I've always been into hiking a lot. And not like the multi-day things at all. I just go for a few hours, sorry.
Oh, I thought it was just a few days. Oh,
just a few days, a few hours. But I now try every weekend, I go once.
Oh, that's awesome.
To just be in nature. It's one of the very few things that takes my mind off things.
Yeah, it's such a good thing to do that.
It really grounds you. I also do dance classes. So that's one of the things because, so not the traditional dance, but more like choreographies.
Oh, that's
like
cool.
Commercial dance, hip hop, all these types of different things. Cool. Because I have such an active thinking, problem-solving mind that's always going. And if you're in one of these classes, you literally can't think about the business. You can't.
That's why I love playing football too.
Yeah,
like, that's for me. Yeah.
You're so in that moment.
Everything else disappears.
Exactly. So it comes back to really immersing yourself into something else and being really present in that other thing to take you out, to have those moments of.
Yes.
So those two things are probably, the exercise that taking me out of it, that thinking mode, as well as actually processing my own emotions and feelings and frustrations in a healthy way.
So how do you do that apart from your therapist? Do you sit in silence in a sauna, or how do you do this? I do meditate. I've been meditating for a long time now. Oh, nice.
Just 10 minutes every few days.
Okay.
It's not that much, but it really helps me. It depends a little bit what's on my day and what I need. I always say I have like different things that help me in different situations. Sometimes I journal. If I can't make sense of things, writing down really helps me.
I've heard this from so many people now.
Yeah, it helps.
Yeah. I've heard this from a lot of people about journaling, and I've never even thought about it until they mentioned it. Interesting.
Yes, have you tried it?
No.
When I had a lot of chronic back pain just from, I don't know, exercising and some injuries,
really?
and then it became chronic. And so I tried a lot of different things in that time. That was now almost 10 years ago. And I think that's when I got into meditation first, got into therapy. It has done a lot of great things, I think, because you just try different things and see what works for you. And someone then told me about journaling, more of a, you write about your day, but also expressive writing, which I personally really liked.
Expressive writing?
Sorry, this is moving. So expressive writing is when you just write without full stops, without stopping, without grammar, without spelling. It's just
write. Like a brain dump, essentially.
Completely brain dump for 5-10 minutes. And then you scrunch it and you throw it.
Oh, what?
And so the science behind it is that you take things out of your brain, but also you tell yourself that you are not your thoughts. That's ultimately the thinking behind it.
Right. It does make sense though, because
they're just thoughts. Like nothing.
Yeah. And also a lot of times you realize, like, especially when you're holding on to something and then you just say it and you're like, right?
Yeah.
Feels like that could be it. I'm not about throwing it away though. I'll probably want to look at it. Instead of any good ideas in here.
Right. So they're just different things. I think different things work for different people. And also, it's I've been fortunate that I've had a lot of companies would pay for therapy sessions. They would have an EAP program, right? So not everyone has access to this. So I'm not saying this is the way to go. But if you have access to it, if you have the ability to have these sessions, that helps. I mean, exercise is really one of the best things anyone can do. Meditation helps, writing helps, dancing, nature helps everyone.
It does.
So I can recommend that, but it depends. I think it's just trying different things and seeing what works for you. And also depending on sometimes the time in your life, different things might work differently.
One thing as well that's really, I really admire is the fact that it can be very tricky to operate. And I've seen these, I've had great female leaders. And operating in the environment of software development, where it's mainly men, is a tricky environment to be on as a woman? Or do you find it as just, navigating it as just usual?
I did an engineering degree in Germany. There were not many girls around. And now I'm in tech and finance. So it's like the worst. When you think about like the diversity. But first of all, I think I got used to operating in that environment. I also had really great mentors, male mentors over the years that really supported me and gave me a lot of learnings and confidence. So I think I had a really positive experience overall. I've been really lucky that I didn't get into too many situations where I get it sometimes. I walk into a room maybe and I see... But then I see maybe a first reaction, or maybe you don't get the attention at first. Yeah. But then to me it becomes a challenge. Then it becomes that's okay. I try again not to take it personally. Yeah. If that ever happens. I think in New Zealand it's pretty good overall. I think I've definitely heard a lot of different stories from people in different cultures and places. So it kind of depends. I think I've been really lucky with most of my experiences. I see it more as a challenge to then show up in a confident way and really hold my ground, and then also try not to make it this big thing in my head.
Yes, because I think that's a big one.
Because the more I worry about it, what they think of me, the more I get into my own head, and then it doesn't help the situation. Let's put it that way. Yes. Yeah. Right. Like there are things outside of your control if you're a minority of any kind in any situation. But I think then that helped me to try not to take it personal and just to be there, do my job. And then most of the times I had positive long-term experiences and relationships that came out of this.
Right. Yeah. Because I always find that, like it's very challenging. I at the beginning, I was very naive when I started in the workforce. I was like 22 or something. And I never thought until I saw it with my own eyes, like how dismissive some of these guys could be, especially in leadership positions. And I was like, dude, this is crazy. I never thought this was actually a real thing. Yeah. But I think that's a great piece of advice. I think you also you come across very confident. So I think right away, that would just, shut all of those doubts off or whatever you might be thinking. But I always have respect for people. And there's not a lot of women in tech, and I would love to see more.
Me too.
I tell my wife, right? For me, it was the opposite. When I went to university, it was mainly women because graphic design is quite a woman-centric career. But all the teams that I've been have always been 98% male.
Right.
Right. There's only a few women, and I always find that it's like we need more on that space, especially for. I think the balance is always good. I think women bring a different vibe to the team,
different energy. Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason why I ask you the question is because I do like to encourage women to get into these spaces a little bit more.
Yes.
It's not enough. I don't think it's not enough. And then I think that's what they have a lot to contribute in these types of spaces. And I always, admire people like yourself.
Thank you.
That have done amazing stuff on this. We've done 2 hours, I don't know.
Oh my God. I did not realize.
The time has gone past. But thank you so much for coming through. I still have, I usually do a soundboard, which essentially is a little board that you have right here in front of you. And it has a bunch of buttons. And they have random questions. Some of them could be quite deep. Some could be quite funny. And I like to finish with this. So yeah, whenever you feel, have a look, tap it.
Oh, I like the yoga emoji, the meditating.
What's a small thing you do every day that makes life better?
I think about what is the one thing that I really need to focus on and be really good at in that day. So it's not so much a to-do list. It's just what do I have to be exceptional at today? And then it takes a bit of that pressure off of the other things that I also have to do or, that are on that day.
Right. So is this like setting your P1 for the day pretty much?
It's a little bit of prioritizing my own life, yeah. And it can be anything. It can be a personal thing. It can be today I have, something in sports or I have something at work, or whatever it may be. Often it is work related, especially during the week. But that takes a bit of that. It focuses me for the day.
Yeah.
And then also takes a bit of that pressure, especially for me as such a perfectionist, it takes the pressure off of the other things that if I've done this one thing really well today, the rest, and then life happens, the day happens, whatever happens then.
You've done your P1, like the rest is going to be a piece of cake. I like that. That's awesome. All right, let's stop another one.
Okay.
If you had to choose one food to eat for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Schnitzels.
What?
A German schnitzel.
Oh, German schnitzel.
Yeah.
Is there a good place to get one in New Zealand?
No, not really.
Yeah, because I've heard about this from people. It's like, oh my God, try that German schnitzel. But I've tried some, and I'm like, I don't think this is going to be 100% right. I don't think this is going to be right. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like when you try Colombian food here, and you're like, nah. Oh, you've been to Colombia, so you know.
I have. Yes, it's incredible.
Nice. This is not it. Okay,
it's not.
Schnitzel. Okay, what is it? Chicken schnitzel?
We have different
pork.
Probably the one I like the most is a veal schnitzel, and it's really thin.
Schnitzel.
It's the most traditional German schnitzel.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. All right, let's tap another one.
If you could erase one decision from your past, would you? And what would it be?
No, I don't think about anything I would erase, because everything, even the bad things or bad decisions, or if you even call it bad decisions, open something else that I'm not really grateful for. So I never think about these things.
Yes. Every mistake you made have made you the person that you are today. I also agree with that. Do you want to tap one more?
Yes, one more.
What's a song or album that you'd say defines a chapter of your life? Oh, that's when we get into the metal part.
True, we forgot to talk about it. I wanted to ask you about your band experience.
Yeah. There you go. You can tell me an album. We can go from there.
One of my favorite bands is In Flames. It's a Swedish metal band. It's the most random way to end this.
We're good
podcast.
friends.
Yeah.
We're good friends now. In Flames.
I had a massive emo time as a teenager, and then I never, musically, never left that period. I think,
and you shouldn't. Same. So I started playing music when I was about how was I? Maybe like 12 years old, and I was really into punk at that time. Punk was my thing. It was my life, the early pop punk, and then going to the hard punk after that. And then as I grew up, I started playing music, had my little punk bands. And then I got into metal. As you start kind of getting more in tune with harder sounds, you start to make sense of them. And then I started liking more hardcore. And then, of course, at that time, I was a big fan of like groove metal.
Okay.
So nu metal, Linkin Park.
Nu metal was the best time.
Yeah, because nu metal was that thing that really consolidated two things that I loved so much, which was hip hop.
Yes.
And then rock.
Yeah.
Right. So when you listen to like Linkin Park and stuff, that's the perfect. It's like the umami of things, right? Like,
yeah, no, it was such a good mix.
Such a good mix.
Or Korn bringing in some of the like own sounds and
exactly. It was like
Limp
the
Bizkit.
perfect.
Yeah, the
and
best time.
Yeah, and so I got into that a lot, and then from there, then I started exploring many routes of metal. I played in hardcore bands. I played in deathcore bands.
What did you play?
I played the bass, and I was the lead singer.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, let me play something for you. I never done this.
I love this.
I've
Are you
never
singing
done
or screaming? Like
both
Both.
and rapping.
Okay.
So I've never done this. So don't judge me. This is
is
very
cool.
old. This is very old.
Oh, you're on Spotify.
Yeah. So this is me. I'm also like songwriting or whatnot. So for example, this is me here in the bass and the vocals.
And the vocals. Okay, I can see the beat, the hip hop influence.
So you can see the Korn influence.
I love it. This is exactly my vibe.
Have the mercy for the broken. It's all about God's will. So kill those motherfuckers. Go.
Sick.
Yeah, so there you go.
That's cool. That's a really, I can see the new metal influence.
Yeah,
That's so
there's
my
a,
vibe.
So there's a lot of like nu metal influence. There's a lot of I'm very at that time it was really like every song I wrote was very politically minded, and I really had that South American in me, so it was all about injustice and stuff like that.
Like Rage Against the Machine.
Very Rage Against the Machine. So that's how I but I also play with like deathcore bands, but everything culminated in this. I mean, this band really brought it together because I wrote the songs, I did everything, the music videos, everything. And it was more around the groove metal, and there's parts of this song, for example, that brings in more of the heavy, like and I always like this thing of mixing it with narratives.
Yeah.
So I'll bring in, actually this iPad, I'll bring it into a show and I'll tap it. And I'll play the bass. And then bring in more of the punk stuff.
Yeah.
And then this, and then if you see the end here, that's more deathcore.
Yes.
And it gets even harder. This is the part we lost all the product designers.
That's you. That's deep.
Yeah. Yeah, there you
That's
go.
incredible. Okay, there's one thing I did not expect. It was to be. This is definitely the first business product design podcast ever where I've listened to some really cool metal.
Well, that's why this
That's a first.
This podcast, I
That's
told
a
you at the
first.
beginning, it's not going to be your regular
No, I love it.
business podcast. But
So is this still going, the band?
no. So I stopped playing music for a while. I don't know if you know this, but having bands is a I I think that had told me a lot about relationship management.
Okay.
Let's put that way.
Okay.
Having bands is very tricky. You're dealing with people with different personalities and whatnot, and a lot of these more talented people you meet, especially people like this that have like great drummers, they're quite unique personalities, and that was very tricky to navigate.
Yeah.
I played for a long time with this band. We toured around New Zealand. We had a great time, but it got to a point where I was like, working my full-time job.
Yeah.
I practice twice a week, and then the weekend we have to like travel to Rotorua, play a show, come back, and it just became a bit hard. So then I started just doing my own music. Like I recorded hip hop. I started producing. That's why you can see here the keyboard and all that kind of stuff. So I started producing my own tracks, and I just make music whenever I feel like doing it.
For the enjoyment.
Yes, but when I go to metal shows, I do get that ache. I'm like, oh, dude, I want to be back on that stage. Like I do really crave that when I go to a show. Yeah. Because it's nothing like in the world
energy,
like being on stage and playing your songs, and then having people in the out there just completely vibing to it. I think it's nothing like that.
I can't imagine. That must be so cool.
Yeah, the energy is incredible. And we play to crowds of 2 people versus more people, and I think it's one of those things that, like we said about with sports, right? You get into that stage and everything else disappears. Yeah. And you're not getting, I think I learned a lot from that, for example, like not getting demotivated by the fact that there's your mom and your dad or whatever it is there, your friends.
Yeah.
And then you're screaming your ass off and performing this thing that you loved and you prepared for so long to do. And yet nobody else, not even the bartender's paying attention. Going through that has helped a lot of building that confidence of not being scared.
You put yourself out there, right? It's scary to be on the stage, but if you do it for your own enjoyment, for your own purpose.
That's right. It's like, when you go to an interview and you're out there, you're showing your work and you're like, oh yeah, and I did this, and then the person's like that.
Just doesn't share any of your enthusiasm.
I've been through that.
Yeah.
So it definitely has helped a lot. Skills that you learn in life that you never know when they're going to come and sort of collide and meld into this project. And that's what the Melding Muse is really all about. It's like putting all of those things together. Yeah. And I've started a year ago, but it's been like one of the best things I've ever decided to do, because not only do I have fun, not only do I learn a ton, I met crazy cool people. Like, just let's think about this for a second. I messaged Lucas saying, dude, you're a badass. Can I have you on my podcast? I've never even talked to him. He says yes. He comes here. We're now friends. Yeah. Because he's such a badass. Then he introduced me to Emiliano, who's another badass, and now we're friends. And then he introduced me to you, right? So it's like, and then that's how the whole thing works. And then I've met, this rapper, and then that rapper introduced me to this DJ, and this DJ introduced me to this rock. And then suddenly now I can message one of my favorite artists of all time. So I'm like, what? This is crazy.
That is so cool. Yeah. It just shows you putting yourself out there, creating something, and taking a bit of that fear out of, how do I get started? Do I have all the skills? Maybe not, but I'll learn it on the way. Yeah. And then great things happen like this, right? And so what you've created now is so cool. So I'm so excited to come, because I've actually watched a few of the episodes already.
And I think a lot of, actually, just to finish with this, is that even founders or people that starting businesses, starting projects, they have a great personality. You can hear them, you can hear them talk forever, and they are funny, charismatic, or whatever. But somehow they don't use that as a business strategy to communicate what the product is all about. I've seen a few that do it really, really well. But oftentimes, I think in business, we neglect the absolute colossal marketing machines that social media is to get your brand out there, to visualize your product proposition. And I think a lot of people don't do that enough. And I think, for example, for me, this has been a great example of going, hey, look, actually, you can reach a shitload of people if you just put yourself out there and be yourself and be authentic and communicate, obviously, correctly what you're trying to do. And people vibe to it. Like the traditional way of creating marketing campaigns and GTM strategies and stuff like that, like that has diverted from the original.
Oh, completely. Especially now when there's so much, you can use AI to generate your marketing content.
Exactly.
Whatever. There's so much of the sameness. Yeah. So what really stands out now is people want to follow other people.
Yes.
And that is true for your business. So I try to be really active on. So it's really cool to hear I run into people or you just say, hey, someone in my company knows of you. Like these, I don't know these things. You just put yourself out there, but then 100%. You do hear, and every now and then I get a message. And we talked about having more women in the field. It really helps to have people out there that you can see that look like you or that do something cool. And so to me, it's always it's a bit weird sometimes to post on LinkedIn 3 times a week or, to share these things or to go on a stage or to do podcasts. It's actually quite uncomfortable sometimes to do these things.
Yeah, 100%, yes.
But they have a huge impact. And so, that's a great example, right? All the amazing opportunities that you get now exposed to because you are putting yourself out there. And so that's how I always try to remind myself to be visible, to show myself, to get out there.
100. And I think one thing that I've learned as well is like, you never know who's watching. Like sometimes, again, going back to measuring success, people put the LinkedIn post out there and they get not many views and they get demotivated. It's like, nobody's actually watching this. Constantly keep going at it. And then you never know who's watching, right? You never know. You put your videos out there. I remember put an Instagram reel out. And if you're comparing yourself with these big influencers that post funny stuff and they get millions of views and your stuff gets like 600 views, you're like, oh man, I'm not going anywhere with this. But the reality is, you never know one of those 600 people who they are. And I've come across people that I wanted to have in the podcast that I reached out to them and that they said to me, I've seen your stuff. I've seen your stuff. I will definitely be on your podcast. And I'm like, damn, you never know. Incredible. You never know who's out there watching. You never know when you put a post out there and suddenly somebody want to invest in your company because they saw something that they, motivated them. So yeah, putting
100%.
Putting yourself out there is important. Although to finish this, we can continue to talk about this. But haven't you noticed? Because I don't post on LinkedIn that often, to be honest, and I'm not on LinkedIn a lot. But I've noticed that LinkedIn has slowly becoming the most fake platform of all time.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like it's crazy. Like everything is now like, of course, because people in LinkedIn, they're business people for the most part. And of course, they've now hacked LinkedIn. This is literally a thing, hacking LinkedIn. And because of this, it has become the most non-genuine platform and fake platform of all time. Like you get people commenting on your videos or whatever you post, and that's obviously not them. It's a bot that's doing that.
It becomes a formula.
To build a profile for them.
Yeah.
That's completely fucked, really.
Yes, I'm not. some of the content really annoys me on there. Yeah. It's become a formula of how you should post, the structure, the one-liners.
The one-liners with like very catchy, like a little bit like, what is that about?
Yeah, and the hook,
and then just to engage you, like I can understand
just to fit the algorithm. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it at all, and it becomes really. I think if they don't get on top of that, it will long-term drive people away from it.
Well, that's what I was going to get to.
Yeah, people are already on Substack, for example, which has now built their own feed where people share their thoughts, which was ultimately what we're trying to do on LinkedIn too, right? You're sharing your thoughts, you're sharing your experience, your perspective. And so I now see a lot of people moving to Substack for reading some of it. It's actually quite refreshing. Right. Having said that, I'm still a big fan of using LinkedIn. It has brought so many good things into my life. Like, for example, even just I found Rome through LinkedIn, right? And through messages. And I met so many great people through it, and there's still good content. So I think you just also need to specifically follow people that do that post in a way that speaks to you, and you curate your own.
But the reason why I mention it is because I agree with you. I think it will just drive people away from the platform, and that platform is actually very powerful for making connections.
It is
for learning.
Yep.
I usually went to LinkedIn because I wanted to see, especially product stuff or design stuff. People share stuff they doing or whatever, and it's quite interesting. Oh, thank you very much. And I think it's going to end up driving people away from it.
The thing that I would say is to still use these platforms to really share your own thoughts and just to show up. It does help people.
It does help regardless.
And just try to show up in an authentic way. Try to write it in the way that you would actually write it, not to cater for the algorithm. Yes, maybe you don't get the reach, but you find the right people through your own authentic way of showing up and sharing your perspectives.
Yes, 100%. Corinna, thank you so much for your time. We did 2 hours and 20 now, see? That time just goes past.
Yes.
Anything that you want to touch on that we didn't touch on before we wrap up? Anything that's cool coming for Bizzy, like expansions, partners?
I think it's just going to be an exciting year ahead. I'm actually pumped for what's coming. It's always hard when you're in the background building something new. It's really that 0 to 1 stage, which is super exciting, but also scary at the same time, because you're building away, you're building the foundations, but often I found the things will then come, we talked about leading, lagging things, like the things will come really later on, but you're planting the seeds now. So I feel that we are now really planting the seeds.
A lot of seeds, nice.
In the industry.
That's cool.
And I think we're doing something that's genuinely going to help a lot of small businesses in New Zealand, and we're super passionate about that. If I can use this as a bit of a platform, I want to talk to anyone, whether you're a small business owner or a finance provider or an advisor that works with small businesses. Talk to us, because we want to involve basically everyone in that ecosystem in trying to help businesses get the right finance, the right advice, because ultimately we talked about the power of financial services earlier. It's such a sometimes boring and not as very sexy space. But
and also hard to comprehend. A lot of people get scared.
I know. And so I know it sometimes gets a bit boring when I talk about the finance and the business lending, but ultimately it is about people like yourself or others building a business, building their dream, and so giving them just the right tools to help them grow their business and fulfill their vision. And that's something that I'm personally really, really excited about. So happy for anyone who might be listening to it. To reach out to me. I'm very responsive on LinkedIn, Substack, whatever platform you want to use.
That's awesome. I'm very excited for where this is going to take you. I think, of course, undeniable drive and undeniable vision, and of course execution, the pragmatic German approach. Have you mixed the pragmatic German approach with the Kiwi ingenuity relaxed bit a little bit, or is still quite German?
I think in the way I think and approach things, I still keep my, my German pragmatism. I love efficiency, I love all the things.
That makes it you as well.
Yeah, but I definitely think I've been here for 11 years now. So there are things I always think we learn from each culture, different things. And I like to pick from every place I go to or I spend some time with or have friends in. I try to take different things and learn from them. I definitely feel I've got more, how do I put this? People in Germany can be a little bit like very direct and very unpleasant. And the directness is a great thing. That's something I still try to practice. And in business, it just, it keeps it open and transparent. And you just say right away if something is for you or not. And to me, it simplifies things massively. And I think it's a way of respecting the other person to be really upfront and honest. So that part I kept. But I sometimes meet some other people that just like start a call and go, okay, let's talk about the project budget. And I go, okay, I think we can be a little bit more, have a brief chat before.
Address the audience a little bit before.
Yeah. Or just like, fine, have a personal chat to the other person and not be as strict to some agenda sometimes. So I think I've definitely learned a bit of that more relaxed, more personal side over the years.
Yeah, I think, oh my God, you brought up this memory of a LinkedIn post I saw, speaking of LinkedIn, of somebody posted a email coming from a Colombian person of all versus a German person. And you can see the amount of fluff the Colombian had on it.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you've been to Colombia, we probably haven't seen, but when you get an email or even just a call from anybody is like super polite and is super like, how are you doing, Mr. Blah, blah, blah. And it's just like full of like every email is, first of all, they greet you. They ask you that they hope that you're having a great day.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. So, and what they were trying to compare is the efficiency, like you said. Like essentially this message, to convey this message, hi, Corinna, I hope you're having a great day today. I know you're very busy.
Yeah.
I also had a blah, 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 blah.
And it would be great if you could. Yeah. To me, it's not just, one part is the efficiency. The other part is just being clear on expectations and avoiding frustration further down the line. So to me, it's something that respects the other person's time and also helps set clear Like, this is what I'm hoping for as an outcome.
Yeah,
I need this by 2 p.m.
Yeah, exactly.
And so then at the end of the day, no one is upset
Yeah.
because it was very clear for the other person what you were wanting, right? Whereas if you frame it in a very soft way, and maybe if you could, and well, tomorrow would be great, but you don't set a time, then it doesn't. The expectation still stays often. The expectation is still there on many people, in many people's heads that they want something by tomorrow, but they're not as clear and when they share that with the other person. So then it just creates this whole avalanche of problems and frustrations in the day to day, and that bubbles up. If you're in a large company, you have a lot of this going on. Yeah, it just creates more confusion and complications.
A lot of times when you are direct, you also in a way expressing urgency in a way when you say, hey, we need to ship this tomorrow. Yeah. Versus when it would be nice. Like, it doesn't actually communicate the urgency.
No, that's right.
So sometimes if you put the fluff around to try to be nice, you're defeating the purpose. Yeah. But it's also important to understand, like, sometimes some people can be spoken to that way. So it's a bit of that balancing act. Oftentimes, I learned this from my wife, actually, because I used to go out more the German way. Because like I mentioned, I pretty much grew up in New Zealand in a business environment here. I started very young. So the Colombian in me is really not that much. Okay. But my wife always said that to me, is like, you can always say hello. Like, at the very least, I agree. At the very least, you can say, hi, how are you? And then you do your direct shit. Like, then you go, I need this tomorrow. Cheers, ST. That's it.
I agree. That's what I meant. That still doesn't mean that you're not a pleasant person to work with.
I think that's what we can finish with.
Yes. I love this. Thank you so much. This has been so fun. And this was the first time ever I've listened to some amazing metal on a business product podcast. So that was cool. Amazing. I loved it.
Yeah, that's how we connected with Lucas as well. He sat down here and he's like, do you like metal music? I was like, yeah. Yeah. I was like, what? Do you like this band? And then we started talking about that for like 30 minutes.
Yeah. Well, you need to we always go to concerts together, literally.
We are going next week with Lucas.
To El Nino.
Yes.
I'm going to be out of the country. I'm so upset.
Yes, we are going.
I love El Nino. I was so excited for it.
Yeah. We're going to El Nino with Lucas. So there you go. Now one more friend for the metal group.
Yes. Yeah. We're growing.
Yes. It's always weird in business, right? Like, there's one guy in my business that's the metalheads. And when you identify that they like metal, you're like, whoa, now we have a new friend.
Like, bonds you in a different way.
It's not that common.
Yeah.
But hey, thank you very much for coming through. We had a lot of fun. I think, again, open invitation for when you want to come back, share some new stuff. And in fact, my experiment in the future with a different format, bring more people in, have a specific topic. I know you do a lot of mentoring and seminars and stuff like that. And I really did enjoy this conversation. I hope everybody who listens to this as well, product designers, product managers, entrepreneurs, whoever you might be, I think there's a lot of business insights on all of this, regardless if you're a product manager, if you're a BA, if you're whatever you are. I mentioned to you, I do bring a lot of the UX or product management stuff, even to the music. Mm-hmm. A lot of people ask me, like musicians, like, man, what do you think I should do about this? And I was like, have you heard about this thing called the lean canvas? And they're like, no, what the hell?
Let's do a discovery workshop on this.
But there are very unique things about that oftentimes there are very simple things that you can apply even as a musician, as an artist, and just grab those and it will help you to really shape up what you're offering in whatever it is that you're doing. Thank you very much for all of you who listen to this. Remember to drink water, exercise, go on hikes, go on dance, and ciao, ciao.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome to the next level.
Thank you for watching this episode of the podcast. If you enjoyed the show, I'll leave you another episode here. And if you'd like to support us, visit themeldingmuse.com. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next one.